Welcome to the Nonsensus. Welcome to Reality, the Musical, the Festival. Welcome to today. What is today? Today is April the 21st. It is a thorough Thursday. It's going to be a thorough Thursday, I declare. Hello, everyone. Hello. And I'm going to launch right into it. I've got some stuff that I think I need to talk about for my own sake. And I'm going to begin by saying that I'm coming off of a deep trough, friends. It wasn't like a depressive episode per se. But I think it's been a solid several weeks now where moments of joy or pleasure were not coming from the place that they say you should figure out how to get them to come from, which is, within. And I've been thinking about a metaphor to make sense of when this happens. I've noticed and leaned into that. I organize my reality in metaphors. It's becoming more and more known. The Joseph Campbells and Jordan Petersons of the world are always talking about how we organize our reality with stories. Now, those are just two Western talky voices, righty fingers, that talk about that. But that this is an ancient understanding. This is something that is well understood amongst folks living indigenously. Though it's strange that we use that word because that just means that you're from somewhere. Indigenous, But anyway, those who, the way I would describe what we mean when we say that, there are clusters of humanity that, instead of technological, machine, mechanical, industrial honings in and development, as we say, though now we're at this point where it's like we might develop a little too much and fuck the whole thing up for ourselves. But anyway, so indigenous, or some would say tribal, though we're all tribal and everybody's indigenous to somewhere. Another word we use is native, which also just means you're from somewhere. But there's clusters of humanity that, for a longer period of time than those places that we now say as developed or industrialized, instead of instead of focusing on technological, quote unquote, improvement, though I'm not bashing technology. I'm using technology. I love a bunch of technology. I'm just, like many of us, a little worried about how far it could go, the cyborg stuff and whatnot. I hear they're working on drone insects and stuff. Like, I don't know, man, but I'm more optimistic than most. But anyway, so clusters of humanity, and sorry if I can't find a better word than clusters of humanity, groups of folks, because at one point these continents that we now know was all one supercontinent. And at one point, all of the sapiens, all of the humanoid creatures of the world had to come from a single strain. There's, the debate about the Neanderthals and what was the other ones? The Denisovans, there was these dwarven. But anyway, all the humans that we now know at one point were I don't know if super cluster is the word, but came from one nucleating group. And people have their different ideas of how that happens. Some people want it to the biblical telling of that, and some want to be strictly scientific. It had to all be materialist. I find those I'm disinterested in that as a debate. I tend to focus on the meaning stuff of reality, and I just admit that my brain doesn't work that well as an objective analyzing computer of factual information and statistics and stuff. better than some, but not, but anyway, ideal in meaningfulness and whatnot. Anyway, I'm getting off from what I was saying. So groups of humans who the what we call the technologically superior groups of humans, when they happened upon each other, usually it's the ones with the boats got to a place where the ones who weren't trying to do boats or weren't trying to go that far with the boats or you know what I mean? Like when the technologically superior, usually an empire, wandered into indigenous folks, at that point, it could be said that that one of the groups of humans put a lot of their effort, and literal calories and brain power into technologically advancing, as where other groups of humans certainly seem to have put a lot more of the collective effort into a more sensory spiritual development. And this is very visible. This is very apparent when you compare the groups of humans before their convergence, or tragically in most cases, fucking warfare and eventual annihilation at the hands of the technologically superior, usually empire. So I want to talk a bit about that observation of what it would be to be more advanced. I like to use the word psychospiritually because it signals with psycho to the people who want to think of things in more scientific, rational terms. That psychology, so it says to them that it's like, well, maybe I just mean the psychological experience of dreaming up a spiritual undertone, or a spiritual reality, a map of meaning sort of thing, but then it also has spiritual in it, which at least acknowledges that, though I am one who sees more and more that it's like, well, I don't know, is the spiritual reality, is it behind reality with a capital R, which some of us don't think is that important, and some people think is the most important thing, the reality with the capital R. When I say that, I mean like objective, like, wasn't it Ricky Gervais who got into an theism, little televised back and forth with Stephen Colbert, and he was like, well, look, if you took all of the stories and all of the mythologies and you burned it all, it would never come back in the same way. But if you took all of the science books and all of the data, it would all come back in 1,000 years because it remains objective, paraphrasing. But anyway, so I don't know what's going on with reality, but I observe sometimes face to face with individuals, and I've taken some field trips to some social scenarios that were not like the one that I was raised in, nor the one that I am currently steeped in, which I gotta say, the negatives of this modernity, this modern world, have been fucking me up, and a lot of us. And as with all misery loves company, there's a camaraderie in that. But I just want to say, it's been fucking me up. It's been fucking the modern world has been fucking me up. I wish to go to the woods. I would really feel like I could use the opposite of this socio-cultural waters that I've been swimming in. I could use a break. Anyway, here I am talking into a microphone, broadcasting on the internet. So and that's not only okay, that's what we're doing. And my attitude is, okay, I'm getting off from the technologically. So right now we're at a place where we got some problems, and some of them are super subjective. I've heard happiness defined as subjective well-being, right? And there's a list of well-documented subjective problems that a lot of humans are having in the modern world, and that a lot of, and it seems like a lot of those more more conjoined and perceptive and connected, and with having high regards to nature peoples, their biggest problem is us, well, I'd like to think of us as all us, but is the quote unquote technologically superior humans coming in and fucking up the landscape, and tragically, terribly, often shooing them off of the land that they are connected to, So okay, problem recognized. And it's like when I think of solution, and I try to be as humble as, not just for the sake of humility signaling, but like really, I think it's better to be humble here. I think it's a really important time to cease with the thing where look everyone, look how helpful I'm being, and instead be real honest with each other of that we've got some problems that are big and that are going to take some collective effort, and I think it behooves us to not be looking for heroes and messiahs so much as figuring out what we're going to do, and that would require a story, that would require a metaphor, that would require something understandable, which what I'm working on for myself as well. So the groups of humans who put all their efforts, brain power, caloric muscle power, but working on becoming more keenly perceptive and connected to the cycles of nature, to the stuff that capital R reality is doing. Nature is capital R reality, right? Those peoples have understandings that if the technologically superior in terms of gizmos and gadgets and getting close on some sort of singularity seems inevitable, some sort of we're already doing some cybernetic stuff. I know there's prosthetic arms that are controlled by thoughts. They've got humans and monkeys doing them. So we're already well along that road, and things tend to advance. Well, I'm using a word advance because, I mean, in the case of prosthetic arms, yeah, that's an advancement. I really think that us figuring out how to leverage technology to help with avoiding unnecessary suffering, and also just making things as fun as possible. But where's that ceiling where we're getting into a place where we fuck the whole show up? We don't know. And again, I'm pretty optimistic about that. I'm one of the less paranoid. But then again, recently I've read and seen some stuff and thought about some stuff and seeing how some stuff is affecting me. And I'm like, whoa, hold on. Maybe we should pump the brakes, or maybe not pump the brakes so much as be real careful. But there's a lot of us, and some of our groups are at literal war and putting everything through the lens of how to leverage this to a maximum destruction of thy enemy sort of stuff. That scares the fucking shit out of me, and should. Anyway, so there's something for the quote unquote technologically superior clusters of humanity, groups of humans, have something vital, I think, to learn from those who spent however so many 100 or 1,000 years separate from that culture. And I like more and more that we use the word culture, like culture in a, you have a petri dish You got culture going on, and it's growing and doing a thing, because human culture is similar. And sometimes we will use the word culture as to say like a culture of people, as in like referring to the group. I've noticed people will say that like this culture and that culture, and they're not just referring to like the sociocultural milieu of that group. They're talking about the group of people as if, and then there's some people who use the word race to describe different population, groups. And I highly disagree with that. I call that racism to anything I think that furthers to say or exists in a way that furthers the archaic and stupid and horrible and has been, the thing where it's everyone's prerogative to stay not only defined and discerning from groups of people, but to keep them separated, as it were, or fucking, God forbid, in conflict, which has happened a bunch and still happens a bunch. I think that us nixing that is, I'm with that. But I don't want to get into the talk of that. A lot of people who are saying a lot of schools of thought that refer to themselves as anti that, I think, say a lot of things that are so the fuck that. They're advancing the idea that it is important that we remain separate, which is there's a nuance to that, which is that cultural clusters having let's say a place, or there being those who are defined. Like, I understand feeling a preciousness about that. I just personally don't have any of that going on in my heart or mind so much, because I just, that wasn't enforced in me as a child, that I was that you're this and they're that. I never got any of that. And you could say that it's in the cultural milieu and stuff, and that there's a lot of truth to that, but it was just never, that was never impressed upon me. And so it's not a knee jerk. And it's something, anyway, I got sidetracked by trying to qualify the things I'm saying, which is a big part of why it's difficult to speak right now, because it's like, and a big part of why it's difficult. I find it difficult as a conscientious and somewhat neurotic person, or just a person who has a lot of like thinks in regards how if I am misunderstood, or if I'm misunderstood, it can upset me to be misunderstood. As where some are just like, fuck them, they're wrong. I do have a thing in me that I don't think is a bad thing, but I do think I have to calibrate often to not err on the side of total silence. But anyway, so I think that story, and if that can be, and there's movies, and there's already really fleshed out stories. Ferngully, I think, is the best one. Some people like the movie. Was it called Avatar? What was the one with the unobtainium? 99, maybe early 2000s and backwards. Was it called Avatar? Because there's Avatar: Last Airbender, and I'm actually having a moment where I don't know what the movie with the blue people with the fucking unobtainium. Anyway, that, which is essentially Ferngully, which is also essentially Dances with Wolves. But I think Ferngully shows it really, really well. Also, I prefer classic hand animated things. They're my favorite works of cinematic art are cartoons. I like Studio Ghibli. I love the Hayao Miyazaki classic. Also, Princess Mononoke says this in a more cautionary. Well, they're all kind of cautionary. There's not really a thing yet, is there? Is there a movie or a story that shows this thing that I know this isn't just in my head, and I've heard this. I won't say I haven't heard someone articulate this in the way that it's brewing inside of me, but I'm going to start trying to say this now, because I think that I do think that it's important that it get out there, or at least even for my own organizing my thinking, because I do in my psycho-spiritual understanding of what reality is and what it's doing, I do think that it is important to be able to imagine how things could go well for yourself, for the collective, for society, for, it's real important to at least have an idea. Now, some of us are less idea generator, and some of us are there are people, I didn't used to understand this, that in the same way I experience myself to have immense difficulty with certain this or that things. And I do have a thing that I had a childhood diagnosis, which of like the word I just call it is I got a switcheroozy brain. It's like you can say left and I'll confidently go right, and I think I'm going the thing that you said, but there's certain thing where just binary is just whoop, and it just happens so much that I tend to be prone for mistakes. Probably not the guy that you want flying an airplane. Then I could also train. I could train myself, and I think that they tend to want you to go through some training before they got you on flying a plane with a bunch of people on it. But I do think more and more that it's like, especially once you found your lane. And I'm 33 now, getting super sidetracked. Anyway, some of us do seem to select from a menu of pre-existing things, but then the creatives, like, what is true creativity? It's like, even when you're talking, like if you write a poem, like I think we would all agree that if one writes an original poem, that's a creative act, right? But what are you doing there? You're taking these letters of an alphabet, or if your language that you're writing the poem in is a pictographic language, then it occurs to my alphabetized mind that it's even more. It's like you're taking these concepts and putting them in a different order, and I know that's a bias of my just having been raised in and only experienced up to this point, like understanding and communicating. No, I use emojis. But anyway, if I write a song, I'm taking a bunch of mouth sounds and concepts, and I'm putting them in a different order. And then the important part that I think is if there is a true creativity thing, I think that it's just your essence. Like, I've got this song that I'm super proud of that we're recording it right now, and the sun is coming out and I can see it right now. That's making me happy. Or it's making me, that helps. Anyway, I get this song that I'm really excited to complete and birth into the world. And it's called Love, and it's about love. And the intro to the song is, this song is called Love, and it is about that. There are multitudinous songs about love, and several with love in the title, but ellipsis, this one is mine. And that's how I feel about it. And I got my gears pretty gummed up creatively for a while when I, like, quote unquote, realized that, oh my God, there is no original. Because that's the thing, that when you have something that is like your felt identity, and then if there is some confrontation, realization that it's wrong, that it doesn't match up with reality, or that it's or usually what I experience is it's not working anymore. That can be quite a miserable experience to unless you see it coming and you know that that's part of life. But it's still, it can be, those are some of my most writhing around in my own neurosis times, where I realized that I was wrong, that I need to recalibrate what I think I am. And one of the things that I used to think that I was, and would have this gassed up, verified verbally by others, is that I am some sort of special, some sort of original, And when I started noticing more and more that it's like, what is there that you can do as a human being who's talking or writing or doing stuff with words? It's arranging pre-existing concepts. Is there such a thing as creating a new concept? There's a lot of remixing. There's a lot of mashups. We're doing a lot of mashup work. And I just think of myself now, unapologetically as sort of a conceptual, emotional, psycho-spiritual mashup maker. Like, when I think about writing a song now, I think that I'm taking pre-existing stuff. I might quote unquote invent a word, but the words that I invent or usually, like when I say or sing a word, have a word in a song or something like that, and somebody's like, "That's not on the dictionary." It's like, well, it's usually the prefix of an existing word and suffix of an existing word, or just some combination, some mashup, right? So, I completely forgot what I was talking about with the thing. Oh yeah, so creating that, putting that into the world, having that be my way of imagining a way for this to go well with like the world, I see is direly important right now for me. I'm just going to keep it in me. And you know, I would also say the world, but once again, I think that it for both for my own sanity and self-respect and also practically amongst the collectives and grand collective of Homo sapiens, the human race, as it were. I think it's important that we have at least an imagined idea of how this might go well, because I have noticed, and perhaps you have as well, that when you go out into the world and everybody's talking about how fucking doomed we are, or how scary the technological eschaton is, you know, how much it's spooking them out, how much it seems like we're getting close to this cybernetic thing, or some Armageddon apocalypse, you know, you know, the real present threat that we annihilate ourselves before things get really cool. I think things are really cool right now, but I think might be on the precipice of things getting really, really cool, or really, really anyway. But when you go into the world and everybody's talking about how scary it is, that fucks us up, doesn't it? And I've noticed that my personal life and my inner world and my just emotions are highly affected by how much hope I think there is for humanity. I mean, because these things are linked, right? It's like, let's say you get, you know, let's say you really dive in to some self-help, sorting yourself out, getting your ducks in a row sort of efforts, and you get your personal life and your personal finances and your relationships real good, better than they've ever been, maybe even to the point where when you play the game of comparison, which, by the way, it's a self-help thing, there's several memes telling you don't do that, don't compare yourself to other humans. Can you really avoid comparing yourself to other humans to some degree? I mean, it's like I'm not saying totally give up the effort of not comparing yourself to other people, but admit that program is always running a little bit, right? Unless you're entirely isolated or you're just totally in your old world and you don't perceive and consider others. There's something in your mental processing that is like, look at that one in its massive mansion on the hill. Perhaps this massive mansion on the hill is shadows over a moat of slums where there are people suffering and striving for the scraps from the table of that, you know, and so you judge them, and a judgment is a comparison. It's saying I'm being more moral and ethical than that, and I don't think that that's a, you know, bad judgment. I don't want to go down that lane right now, but so you look at the mansion on the hill that is towering over the slums of suffering people, and then you look at the person in the shack who's, let's say, happy as fuck. You know, that subjective well-being. There are people who live in mud-thatched shacks who are happy and healthy as fuck. And they don't have robot maids or sex dolls yet. And but they're doing great. They don't even have a cell phone, let alone a smartphone. And they really are sincerely experiencing the human experience in a way that, like I just admitted, I've been a tad miserable just for a little bit. And, and there's spikes of goodness, but they tend to be something that I do, or I'm going to put a timeline on this, but it's been the last 3 weeks. I've just been noticing more and more. Oh man, well, I've really got something to figure out inside of me, because I'm noticing that my spikes of joy all seem to be coming from an activity, which is external, right? I mean, that's better. I don't want to go doing the judgment thing of I mean, I don't know if you knew this, but I've had a drug or two. Not now. I've had coffee, and this one, man. All right, I'm going to pause that. I would like to talk about coffee in this. I am talking about coffee by talking on coffee. You can notice the effects of that. But anyway, this is a drug, and a lot of us do it. A lot of us do this drug every single morning, but you wouldn't call a person who says, don't talk to me until I've had my coffee. You wouldn't call that person a drug addict. And I think there's something that is, pause on that bookmark. Anyway, what the fuck was I saying? I thought I was onto something. Okay. So that subjective and intersubjective well-being, happiness, a happy family that lives in a mud thatched hut that is unaware that there is a mansion overlooking did I say moat before? God, that was fucking sorry. Take that back. Refer to a ring around, but maybe it is like entrenched, and maybe when it floods there's water. And anyway, I'm trying to paint a picture here of and I don't know there's situations where this exists. I know that I just saw a picture the other day of an Amazon facility that is like amongst slums, and it's like the only new looking thing amongst like absolute slums. So anyway, there's probably people in the ring around the mansion of the slums that are happier than the one who's pacing around in there, maybe. They say the thing, it seems like the data is in that money helps with happiness up to a certain point. And then it's just like this thing where it's like, okay, I have achieved abundance and wealth. Now what? And there are some very sad people who are wealthy. This is well known. Anyway, so there's a happy family in the thatched hut, and then there's a miserable, miserly mansion dwelling, pacing around. No, that family is like, well, there's this guy, and then there's these people under his umbrella that are like, we're blood related, and like, yeah, I was the sperm donor for that one and that one, but there's really not a family going on there. They're not really like a connection. It's just kind of like this title and this, usually there's a thing where it's like daddy or mommy has the money, But anyway, there's definitely 100% examples in this world of happy, healthy family living in a mud thatched hut, and then miserable, miserly mansion dwelling guy with a kind of wife and some kids that is not a happy family and not a happy person and not a happy situation. So I do think that some recalibrating of there's some systems failures going on there, and I think that rewording, finding the right words where it's not so on some hashtag eat the rich vibes, which I know a lot of my friends are super about that. And some I got some friends that'll say explicitly some stuff about doing some stuff to some like billionaires on their lawn. And I'm like, whoa, hold on. I get where you're coming from, but like, whoa. That's just not good messaging. That's not gonna be helpful. I don't see that ending well. I wouldn't call that a hopeful angle on what to do about that. I think that there's a way to word and policy wise. Now I'm gonna pump the brakes on politics talk. That's not what I'm trying to be talking about here. But I think that there is a way to frame how to fix this problem that we have with wealth disparagement and stuff in a way where it's like, hey, you the miserly, miserable mansion dwelling like person who the system has allowed and supported and encouraged socioculturally and policy wise for them to get to this point where they have this absurd, unspendable amount of monetary, you know, big number, you know, and there's a known cutoff point for when money helps with that subjective well-being that we call happiness, and then also like what you can do with that. Like it gets to a point where the keeping up with the Joneses and how many yachts and how big of a yacht you can have, like it gets fucking insane. And I know that there's a whole camp of folks, a whole side that's like the sanctity of being able to rise and own stuff is like the sanctity of that is super important to that side. And I think that it just behooves us not to, when there's millions of people who think a certain thing and there's a momentum, it's like, well, you kind of have to negotiate with that. And I just think that there's a way of wording it that I think we're getting close to. And I know that there's those who are saying things like this. I haven't been talking or listening to a lot of like politics stuff after that big surge of thinking and talking about it way the fuck too much. But you know, that this is actually like something like a wealth cap sort of thing. You don't see it as a limiting. It's like, this is for your benefit. Like this will make it so that there's less people at the bottom who might say do bad things to you on your lawn, you know, in an extreme case, you know, but really like it's just it's good. It's good for all of us if there's less people who are totally fucked by the system, or, you know. Anyway, I didn't want to go down the political avenue. I'm going to stop right there. I'm just going to stop. That's a wonderful thing about this here program and this here I guess brand of the Nonsensus is I want to talk about what I want to talk about, which is I wrote down these 3 bullet points. I had a tiff with reality. I believe I entitled this one Negotiations with Reality. I've been negotiating with my reality, and sometimes as if that capital R reality, which sometimes I write as capital R reality in quotation marks, and sometimes just lowercase r reality in quotation marks, and rarer and rarer will I just write I don't feel honest writing the word reality as a not proper noun, because, or in quotation marks, because what the fuck do we, you know, mean by that reality? I don't know, but I know what I think I mean when I say capital R reality, and I'm getting way more dialed in definition of what I mean by reality, the musical, the festival. Like when Alan Watts says, but that's not reality. This is reality. Dong, and hits the gong. As in, you know, the physical world, which sometimes we mock those or the schools of thought for being too materialist, but it's like, what's more, dare I say, divine than like the woods, nature, you know, and all of this technology and all this physical material stuff, all the gizmos and gadgets that we got, we took stuff out of, you know, what we call nature, and somehow as creatures that, from what I understand, sprung forth from nature, we have the ability to make things unnatural, as where all of the other animals, all of the other creatures, all the organisms on the planet, when they do stuff like a beaver builds a dam. I saw some beavers building a dam the other day. I didn't see them building it. I saw the built dam, and I saw the clearly beavered at tree, where, you know, when a tree has been clearly beavered. I saw that, and then I saw a swimming beaver. They're so cute when they swim. if you see a beavered tree or you see a dam that has been built by beaver kind, we don't call that unnatural, do we? Maybe some do. But from what I understand, when we talk about stuff that beavers do, or like ant hills, spider webs, that took a conscious effort. Well, who knows what ants and spiders and beavers are thinking or not thinking. And that, we call that natural, right? That's still the natural world. But once you got like a smartphone, or even just like a ceramic cup, or the coffee inside of the ceramic cup, we would call that unnatural. That does not occur naturally. Though more and more, isn't it? You think about how fast it went from there being a few things in the grocery store that toted their natural organicness to that being, it almost seems like most things now say that they got, at least that they tout what natural stuff they got in them, containing some natural ingredients. Natural agreements. What is a natural agreement? Did we naturally agree with kitty and pup kind for them to go from the wolf and feline predators that they once were to these docile, domesticated friends, and some could argue captives, but maybe both. Maybe, this is, if you've got a kitty, that is your friend, but do you let it leave? I mean, I don't have a strong opinion about stuff like that, and I love cats, and I love pups, but I don't think I will ever own one. See how we say the word own, pet owner. I don't say that about my friends, I don't say that. I don't say that about my lovers unless they make it clear that they like to be talked to that way. But I love kitties, and I recognize that there was what could be argued as an unnatural agreement that happened there. Did we sit down with the chieftain of the cat tribe back when they roamed the forests as organically occurring and naturally, they used to just do just cat stuff. Now they do a lot of cat plus human stuff. And I mean, if we're going to analyze that trade-off, at least for us, or even I'll just make it about me, I'm glad we are where we are with cats and pups because I love them. I love that there's two of them. There's two kitties and a pup at my mom's house, and I go there frequently, and I get to have a cat-human relationship. Again, I got to admit, and I know that this really, it scares me to say this publicly because I know that this really can be a huge drop. This might constrict my dating pool. That I'm not the most dog oriented person. I love them when I love them, and there's certain ones that I really love, and I enjoy a lot of dog time, but it frightens me to let this be known, but there are times where they annoy the fuck. There's some dogs at some moments that annoy the fuck out of me, and I don't think I'll ever want to cohabitate with several. I've cohabitated with one before. Anyway, they're dogs. They need a lot. It's just, there's people who are cat people, there's people who are dog people, there's people that get along, with both. And I love dogs. I love dogs. I love my mom's dog. There are several dogs that I know that I love. I would love to be with and interact with and snuggle with the dog today. I feel that now, actually. I love dogs. But as we're cats, some people can't stand how standoffish and how like I'll let you know when I want pets and affections, how cats are, you know, which can be, even as a cat person, maddening how mysterious that can be. But then those moments, man, when you're having a real rough day and the kitty just comes up to you and starts to snuggle you in a way that is, and pups do that too. But I've lived I've lived amongst, I've had more situations where there's cats who have access to where I sleep and sob. So when I'm in a depressive rut, like I was recently, it would have been nice to have a cat around. Might have been nice to have a pup around. I had neither, and maybe that made it more of an excruciating experience. Anyway, was it a natural agreement between us's and the kitsy catses and the pupses? You know, it happened. People got hawkses that they had they had some agreements and training with, that, you know, the hawk will go do a thing on command, you know. The fuck was I fucking talking about before I got into, you know, because cats used to eat us. Like, there was a time for there were some clusters of humans that had a real problem being physically destroyed and devoured by saber-toothed tigers. There's been several cats that have killed many a human. I know there's a problem with the stripy orange tigers kill people. I've seen some videos that I can never unsee of tiger assaulting or killing a person. There's some fucking super scary. They are fast and they are wicked strong. And I mean, just like, you ever been really sincerely swatted in the face by a clawed, just like outdoor cat, just like a usual sized cat? You ever got that across the cheek? It sucks, and it can leave a serious wound. Imagine that much bigger, much stronger, with a fucking talon, as opposed to this little scratchy thing. These giant like spears, 5 of them on each hand. I had a cat that I grew up with who is recently shed their mortal coils. Panda, full name Pandemonium. I love you, Panda Bear, wherever you are. He had 23 toes. But anyway, you know, 10 fucking daggers, like, and that it used to be a war between big cats and humans. And now what do we got? You know, I bet the statistics are meager of cats fucking attacking humans. Where was I going before this? Okay, negotiations with reality. Hello, Lil Pop Tart Jr. Lily Pop Tart. Hello, Lily Pop Tart Jr. How you doing this morning? Or wherever it is, wherever you are. My negotiations with reality. Well, first I talk about, I had a tiff with reality. And, you know, so I think in metaphors. It helps me make things sometimes funnier to myself, and funny really helps me move forward. Sometimes it helps me make sense of things. Sometimes it helps me make things a little bit more theatrical and dramatic, so that I am, as we say, inspired to continue. I started thinking in this metaphor of like, wow, when I have a tiff with reality, when I have an entire bout and resolution of existential dread and or despair, and usually it's both. I've noticed this thing with anxiety, depression. It's like, depression seems to be you're thinking too much about the past. Anxiety is you're worrying too much about the future. They really help each other out because it's like, I'm worried that the future will be like the shitty parts of the past, is usually the way it's going down in my brain. Anyway, when I have a bout of fuck, I hate it here, or I'm really scared to exist, which is usually paired with, I'm so sad about the way things have gone and the way things are going. And, the worst thing is just feeling the nothingness. Like, there's times where I'm watching the nothingness rip across the land. And I'll use the metaphor of the never-ending story. A lot of you are familiar, more people are familiar with the 1980s film than the book. But man, if you're into books, that book, I audiobooked that, and that it gets biblical. The second part of the never-ending story book is biblical because it's Bastian rebuilding Fantasia with his wishes and dreams. And I think it makes a great metaphor for what's happening right now. Like, if you're afraid about the future, I think it behooves you to, whether you're a creative person or you've got a creative team, just your group of friends who get together and think and talk about stuff, or whether you're one who chooses from a menu. And again, we're all mashup artists. I'll keep saying this, like, I don't understand what true creativity is yet, but we're taking anyway. I think it really behooves us and individuals to have an imagined idea of how this goes well with humanity and the crescendoing, hopefully not crescendoing, because crescendo in that word insinuates that it peaks and then so the what's going on with technology, I think it really behooves us not to be just in the worries about that. I think it really helps to be excited about what could go really well, and in terms of staving off or perhaps entirely avoiding some apocalyptic scenario with technology, or perhaps even worse, a scenario where we accidentally fuck the game of the human condition with our technology. These are things that people have some rational apprehensions about. Anyway, imagining how it could go well. I think that the never-ending story really gives a good metaphor for that. Keep wishing, make wishes, dreams, bring things into reality. If you're quote unquote not a creative person, and I know that there are those who it's like they're just that's my old worldview, talking of putting that in air quotes of not creative person. There is a lot. We are really diverse. Neurodiversity is more of a phrase that is uttered more. It's becoming household knowledge that we are real different, and that's and the subjective thing that I think is really important to work on is that's beautiful. That's good. It's good. But anyway, if you're, if you observe yourself to be a creative person, and an important part that you're more inspired by something that you think that you had a part in, it's shake and bake and I helped, then, come up with your metaphor, your story for what we're doing and how this can go well. It's important. And if you're more of, let's just say you prefer selecting from the menu of pre-existing stories and metaphors and stuff, find one that really excites you, or at least that makes sense to you, because it's different the way we get excited. We're so different, and it's so fun and funny. And oh my God, it gets frustrating and calamitous. We're walking in different realities, and we're right next to each other, and we exist. Oh man, that was apparent to me as fuck before the pandemic, but the pandemic made it really, really apparent that you can have 12 people in a room and you can have 12 very different realities. I mean, you always do. But you can have like things that like where people's reality tunnels clash. They don't work with each other. That gets interesting and again, frustrating and sometimes calamitous. Anyway, yeah, I had a tiff with reality. I had a fight with reality, and I could use, I could personify it. I could use the G word, but this time I'm not gonna, because I know some people, you lose some people, even if you give a disclaimer of, when I say God, I mean reality. Okay, so reality, I had a fight with reality. I had I had well, usually it starts with a nucleating event that it's like, that's not right. And, you know, some couples, like I'm using the metaphor of like a romantic sexual, like couples fighting, you know, usually the way that goes down, there's a moment of the clash begins, or something is noticed. This isn't working. And usually those some couples are more skilled at this, or sometimes it's just one of the persons being more aware of the mechanics of how this conflict resolution, you know, thing happens. We talk about it, we learn from it, we negotiate clearer boundaries. Walls keep everybody out, boundaries tell you where the door is. I love that phrase. I don't know who said that, but I think that says it really well. Anyway, things get better because we noticed something wasn't working, you know. So a couple fight usually happens with some event of like, that's not right. And usually I would say, even if both are skilled at this, there's you know, you might just be on a night out and you're trying to have fun, so you don't verbalize it right there in that moment. But then it stews, right? And it builds, and you notice more and more, and you start connecting the dots of past stuff. And then before you know it, you gotta fight, or you gotta this, we need to talk, you know? And then it is often that there are some accusations get thrown. I really love the idea of, man, if I were to find myself in one of those relationships where there's like I'm working on this idea of, you know, there's a lot of 2-syllable prefix and then sexual. There's a lot of, you know, like sapio, that's 3. Fuck. Demisexual is something that people say, which I think is, you know, totally a thing, but then it's like you kind of just describing the ideal of what our value system is going towards, that everyone be demisexual, right? Demisexual, I believe, the way I would paraphrase the definition of that is one who is that you're primarily or only or exclusively attracted sexually to those who you have a genuine emotional bond with, you know. And I'm not saying I'm not saying that it's a weird word or concept. I'm just saying that when I look at that, I'm like, well, that's the ideal, right? That's like, you know, people criticize when somebody's being robotic or you know, physically, visually oriented. They say objectifying or, you know, sexualizing a person, and we recognize that as something that we're culturally trying to. I don't think we'll ever entirely nix that, but like we're going towards a place as a culture where we value, you know, fucking true love, right? Or like sincere connection, right? So when I first heard that concept, I was like, well, yeah, like ideally I would be demisexual too, but there's also this like physiology stuff going on that I can't deny, and that I sometimes don't even think is a good or healthy idea to row against the currents of. But anyway, I'm getting to that. So I'm thinking of the concept. I want to add one to the list, because I observe myself to be more and more negociosexual. I'm really attracted to and really have a growing value towards if a potential or actual, you know, mate can talk, can communicate like what they want and don't want and stuff like that's becoming more and more the ideal to me. Negociosexual, that you can, that instead of this flailing in the dark trying to figure out what are the good buttons and bad buttons of each other, and, you know, having the whole trial and error thing happen, that it would be so ideal to like meet someone, or like know someone for a bit, and then at some point it becomes observable in practice that like, whoa, we're capable of talking. about what we want and don't want. That sounds both like I intellectualize that as the ideal, and that is super fucking hot to me. The idea of someone being able to say, or perhaps write, or perhaps I should make a scantron of pre-existing concepts and options and erogenous zones that I understand, and not just. And I don't mean to just keep this into. They're not just like sexual, but like like if I were to ever cohabitate with somebody, you have to be able to talk, right? That's one where you have to be able to figure out what it is that is working and what is annoying the fuck out of you about this whole other person, as Jon Snow from that television series based on those novels that, God, that ended badly. And I can't bring up Game of Thrones without saying that it ended badly. And I always want to encourage people to create and to make stuff, but the team and those with the most power and levers in deciding how that wrapped up, that 7th season, was it? The last season of Game of Thrones. I'm mad. I'm still mad. I'm hurt. And I think that there must have been some intentionality to how bad that was. I honestly think that it seems like there's no way that was an accident. That was so anticlimactic. What the fuck were those Ravens doing? It was never answered. So many things were never answered. So many ships were never landed. Anyway, let me land the ship. Let me get towards landing the ship of what I'm talking about. I got 15 minutes because I said I was only going to go till noon. I'm in some negotiations with reality now. I had a tiff with reality. I had a fight. I threw some accusations at, let's call it her. I said, reality, it's like your program is to fuck with me in a malicious way. It's like you want me to, it's like you enjoy watching me writhe around in misery and frustration. And it's like, and then and that turns to maybe the accusation. It's still in sort of the accusation blaming phase. There's some like pleading in a really desperate way of like, can I at least like have regularly occurring moments of respite in terms of certain problems that but that and then I realized then ideally, and this is the way this last one went down for me, is that and then I realized that's ridiculous to think, reality isn't designed to be like a torture chamber for my consciousness. And then the actual felt gratitude, and not just like the meme that tells you should feel grateful. It's good for you. More stuff to be glad about will happen if you feel great. Like, I know that. But knowing that and having that sentence in my head that it's better to feel grateful isn't the same as feeling it, And the really feeling it usually comes from this moment where I totally don't feel the gratitude at all. And I'm fucking like, this shit sucks. Fuck this place. Fuck these people. Fuck me. That not as a directive, as in like, fuck this guy. My brain, and then I'll start cursing my brain, and it'll be, so anyway, these are a lot of things that I notice are, there's parallels to the romantic sexual relationship fights that I've experienced before, where it's like, okay, knee jerk, verbal daggers, fuck you, you're doing this on purpose. You're doing and there might be some name calling in there. Back to just one quick back to the negotiosexual thing of like, because I'm trying to figure out in the same way that you want to have an imagined understanding of how things could go well for the human race, or Earth, and reality, the musical, the festival. I think it's also, I'm intently actively working on now what my ideal relationship would be like, because there's people who say it's more likely to appear if you have a very specific understanding or wish. And so I would love to one day have a thing with a person where there is an agreed understanding that when fights happen, there's like one rule I can think of is like, we both know that we're not throwing verbal daggers in, we don't sit and sharpen and think about those. They fly out, like, and the accusations of you're hurting me on purpose, like I think that's never really true, right? There's definitely this thing that I observe where people try to enact vengeance on the person that they're currently in love with or betrothed to or haven't, just relating with all of their past villains who they never got to smite. I feel like I have been smout in that way before. I've been smited for the sins of all men past. Not just for that person. Sometimes it seems like you are galvanizing the vengeful hatred that you have for a millennia of men, and you're throwing it at me. And it seems like one of the reasons why you're throwing it at me isn't even like what I did or who you think I am. It's just that I am open. I'm here for it, which I do actually tend to be sometimes in the past, at least, it takes a bit before I realize, wait, like, you're being fucking mean to me, or like, anyway, yeah, that idea. Did I lose my thread about the negotiation? So yeah, the fight with reality happens. It happened. I said things I don't mean. I felt ways that don't line up with if I make any conscious attempt to figure this out or to think about reality. I don't think that reality is designed to hurt us. It does. I don't think that's its end goal, though. I think that all of the hurt, and this, I also recognize that this is a subjective, intersubjective thing. This is the thing that we could choose to believe, and it would be real as fuck. It gets realer and realer the more you believe it. That every ouch bad thing, the pain that we feel can be turned into fucking magic. Really clear to me now that when I am really unhappy, there is an opportunity to make art. And I really want to get better at doing that because it's the most beautiful thing. And it makes, there's this one thing though, that like I have an apprehension about going further and further down that road, down that understanding of that whenever I am in emotional pain, whenever I, and some days, like days in a row, like I'm really miserable about something, I'm really upset about something. That it is both like helpful healing, like to me to turn it into art. And it's the most beautiful thing that I could do with that opportunity for the world. But sometimes, man, definitely in the past, like this last one, I wrote some stuff. I guess I'm doing it now, actually. No, I am. I'm doing it now. This is an art form. There's been between 1 and 3 people watching this live, and I have a tendency to delete things right before, but I'm arting right now. I am making art with though I am kind of on the other side, or at least coming out of it. Like just this morning and a lot of yesterday, I was in the misery. And there's this physical component to it, man, which I got to talk about. I don't want to talk about it much. I am not a nutritionist, but man, there is this thing where if you eat, and then there's this thing where if you eat, you eat shitty stuff when you're feeling bad. We say eating your feelings. I used to not understand that phrase, eat your feelings. It's like that. No, you're eating pizza. You have negative emotion. You're not eating your feelings unless you're like, some people will do like a little Reiki charming of their salad before they consume that. Sometimes it is almost as if we put like hate Reiki into the, I don't want to dog on pizza because pizza is like a soul food, right? Like pizza, what's something that really just fucks you up? No, anything can be a soul food. You're familiar with the concept of soul food? Like if you really did like the deep understanding of like, this thing has a lot of not the best for your body calories, but it tastes so good. And ideally it's made with love, like people talk about their grandmother's fried chicken and stuff. And it's like that. Okay. That's not those aren't the most nutritionally optimal calories there, but it's made with so much love and it tastes so fucking good. And you eat it with family. It's a whole, there's a bunch of love going in there. And then the opposite of like, eating your feelings in a really negative way of like, sometimes it is a pizza, because they deliver those. They deliver everything now. But, there's been a lot of humanity has ate their feelings with a lot of pizza before. And like, unconsciously casted a little spell of misery on it. I'm like, I'm put my sadness into this slice and now this slice. Anyway, I'm just saying that there's a thing in a lot of these, like when I feel my worst, it's usually comorbid with eating like shit. And I'd like to get better at that, particularly as I get older, and I am aware of this thing now. I am well aware that positive thinking and staying young at heart, these things really, really do help. But you know what really, really helps reality with a capital R? Exercise and at least less detrimental food. But if you can have like, we have access now to these things. Like I take these turmeric pills often. And just like, my insides must be like highlighter yellow. For those of you who have the word has not reached your ears of this turmeric stuff, it's really, really helpful in making delicious meals, but also the data is in that you get it, you put it in you because it helps with inflammation, and inflammation hurts with a lot. You can tell I am not good with my jargon, and that is not my wheelhouse. But I pick up on some stuff. Anyway, in my recent bout with reality, this fight that happened. So you have the something's wrong, and then you have the build up and the festering, and then you have the outburst of fuck you, you're doing this on purpose, you monster. And then you have the fuck it, I'm not talking to you. And then you have the realizing that it's ridiculous, the accusation that reality is, out to get you, just to get you. There's, it's, and I think it really helps to have that understanding of it's doing the thing again. It's presenting me with an opportunity to learn some stuff, make some art. I love, I don't forget who said this, but that several, I think have said this, but something to the effect of, there's no greater art form than to love another person. In Les Miserables, it is sung, to love another person is to see the face of God. I believe that shit. I have a particular definition of that God word, but I think that okay, let's take it back to there's no greater art form than to love a person. There are some people who would say, I'm not an artist, I don't create. It's like, but you love someone, and to love a person, man, this is the thing that I really wanted to get to. To love a person is one of the most perfect examples of a paradox to me, of two contradictory things that are true at the same time. Whether to love a person or to love humans, to love humanity, if you dabble in the idea of trying to love, which I think the closest synonym to is accept, but there's more to love and loving. If you are one of these weirdos like myself who in fits of passion will say like, I love you all, and actually think I mean it. Now, again, I have a particular definition of this word love. But the paradox there is love is loving a person, let's just keep it to a person, so simple and easy, or is it the most difficult and arduous, effort requiring thing that could be imagined? And my answer is both. It is so both. I will say that committing to a personal constitution of I'm going to try to love these things and or like this one, I'm, or like to do, and then, like that, what it means to take a deep dive with a person And I don't mean like physical penetration. However, that, for several, that is that's something that happens. But to really know a person, spend a lot of time to see their muck and shadows displayed before you, and to become keenly aware of their aspects, both, subjective, good and bad. They're like to let someone see my failings, and and uh and that and to love, not just despite those quote unquote negative aspects, but to love the whole thing that somebody is. That is both the most simple and the most difficult thing, I think, because it's like, if you just, what makes it simple is that you can just, I don't want to say just, I'm finding more and more that it helps to decide, I love this person, and whatever comes through that gate, I'm going to love that because it's part of them. And, obviously there's extreme things, and there's contracts to where if this thing happened, it's a fucking betrayal. And I have not experienced in my life some of these big potential betrayals that come in that realm, like being married to somebody and having an actual written contract. And that there's some people who have the experience of catching their person that they have a contract with fucking another person, seeing it. Like, that's a fucking, and because you decided, I'm going to love this person, and you decided, I'm going to devote to, and maybe you've been doing some cheating too, and that would soften the blow. But then in the moment, you don't want to, give that away. You just, you're just like, because that's the way it works with a lot of couples. I've noticed that it's like, you want to leverage as much as thing, because there is a bit of psychological warfare going on there, even in the most healthy ones. There's a little bit of everything. But anyway, you decide that whatever someone is, and that's what I idealize. My ideal relationship is there is something like a committed that, but then there's also the understanding of who we are changes, I think, it could be said, and this is where you just get into words of weird territory, but like, what we are, you could say what we are never changes, but who we are, like my fucking identity, I am a different person. I don't just have like I'm a different person than I was at age 20 or 25. If somebody were to say, like committed to, I love this version of you, like I am not that anymore. I am something quite new. Getting a text from work that is asking me if I'm aware that that I'm to be in at 2:30, and it is now noon o'clock, and I have something that I need to accomplish. Man. So, okay, back to the TIFF of reality. I got really trailed off when I was talking about, the commitment and, the deciding to love the person in reality. I mean, there's a meaningful thread there, but I can go on forever about this. And I want to land the ship here of this negotiations with reality, this concept of, you have a fight. I have TIFFs with reality, and they behave in similar ways to like romantic sexual fight. We had our first fight, sort of thing. Yeah, the art of loving a person. I spent a day or two, and one full day isolated at home. I was offered to work and declined it. I was offered to hang out with a friend who would have been good. It would have been one of the more ideal friends that I have, to be able to, because sometimes I'm in a state where it's like, hey, I got to tell you, if you're going to come around me, I'm going to be fucking negative. Unless in a situation where, that's the thing about working a job where you're doing with people, which is like one of the most draining things in the world. No more and more, but it's a thing that you've committed to, and you've, by having that job, you've made a promise that no matter what state I'm in, I'm going to do this role, which the worky job for money that I currently have is a tipping position, and it is a you know, if I clock in, I'm in. I'm ready to be charming and encouraging, and maybe even the word bubbly applies to. And if I'm actually like miserable and stormy inside, that can be quite an effort. And sometimes it's totally genuine, and it's like there are definitely times where it's like I am not making an effort to put a mask on right now, but then there's times where it definitely am. Wonder how today's going to be. Anyway, fuck was I saying? I spent a day. I wrote this thing. This really shows it. This describes better than if I were to make a attempt to describe right now. What's going on here with this day? I spent a day where I was resigned, but then also felt kind of empowered later by. Sometimes I'll think to myself, this is something I wrote yesterday. Yesterday was that day. Sometimes I'll think to myself, quote unquote, I'm not handling this well in regards to a personal crisis of some sort, or about reality and or my/the human condition at large. But today I noticed that my modus operandi, my MO, for a while now, and growingly so, has been to notice when I am a black hole of misery and I don't feel inspired to transmute any of it into anything pretty or helpful, and take what seems like the appropriate actions to not make anyone's day or life worse because I am feeling miserable and wanting company. And by that, I mean both like misery wants company, and also like sometimes I'm miserable and I want company, but there is kind of a meta awareness that this isn't going to be good for the person. If this person's flying high, I might bring them down a bit. And then, misery loves company means like when you're miserable, you feel more connected when you're with somebody who is also miserable. And then there's this crabs in the bucket effect. Anyway, today I am going to do just that. I'm going to not make anything worse. I think I'm going to knock it out of the park, in fact. I don't mean to brag or virtue signal here. I've seen memes saying things like, I award you no points for not being evil. Well, considering a lot of what I've come to understand about the human condition, I do award you points for the misery you don't offload onto the innocent children of God around you. I really am proud of everyone for every time they unball their fist and choose to not fuck things up more than they already are. I know some of us aspire to save the world, in quotations, and or optimize our communities or personal well-being and such what. I encourage any efforts to help out around here in small, humble, realistic ways, or maybe even in big and evidently realistic ways. As in, like, I encourage your helping out in ways where, like the small ways really help. They clearly help. Sometimes when we aspire to help in big ways, like be the messiah of some social movement, or sometimes it's just a lot of talking that is not, the rubber isn't hitting the road. You're not tracking, but you can have the experience. A lot of the internet allows a lot of us to have this experience of like, I said the thing, I'm being helpful. And I do think that it helps in some way. But anyway, it's really helpful to help in these small, realistic ways. And it is possible, there are heroes amongst us, like, Malala Yousafzai is an example of like helping in some big and realistic ways. She's doing capital R reality stuff, and it's helping in big ways. But you know what? Some days, I think you deserve an invisible medal of honor just for having the humility to realize and enact the unsungly heroic act of just not making things worse. Today, I am manning that post. I'm not fucking things up any more than they are. I know it's utterly uninspiring, and I'm keenly aware of it. Today, I think I'm handling this whole reality thing pretty goddamn well. Happy reality. I honestly don't feel it right now, but I love you all. So, yeah, that was my yesterday of like, I'm feeling so wretched that I think that the only thing that I could do, the way that I could, because that thing where it's like when you're feeling really wretched, it can be very, very helpful. It's actually the thing to do if you can pull that out of yourself, to switch to service, to look to somebody else who is suffering or suffering more than you and help them. Sometimes at the very least, it'll do this thing where you disengage from your own stuff that you're upset about. And it can at the very least, it's distracting. But then if you're actually like able to help a person, it sometimes is the antidote. And I think that then there's some people who are so bravely, beautifully doing this. It's really inspiring to see. There are people who have very particular suffer stories who take that suffer story and make it this key to connection with several or many others. Like there's people who tour talking to people who have suffered in a similar way, and they are able to connect with them because of that common thread of tragedy turned into beauty, into love, into gold that they have. Yesterday, I did not that, or if I did in some ways, because I did communicate with some. Maybe I don't credit myself, because there's this thing that I definitely observe sometimes in doom scrolling, and I'm well aware that I should avoid that as much as I can. Scrolling the social networks when I don't even know what I'm looking for. I just don't want to feel what I'm feeling. That usually digs deeper. Sometimes though, I'll see someone who I admire or love, or I just recognize their humanity, not to say not to belittle that. I see the, I see the I am in the you are, and I see them saying, I'm having a terrible day, or I'm not okay. And sometimes someone will say something where there isn't even a a positive, optimistic note at the end. It's just doing badly. And that will shift something in me to, there's a few ways that this happens. There's like, I might go into the thinking of like, oh, I think there's been a time or two where I'll reach out to somebody who is a friend of mine and you don't want to, some people will say you don't want to encourage that, posting your feelings by it working and being bringing the attention, because then just like, a child, you don't want to enforce certain things, like throwing a temper tantrum resulting in affection or coddling, or like a new toy. I want the toy. Many would say, and I think they're onto something, that if your child is throwing a temper tantrum in the toy store, if I want that one, I want that one, I want that, and you have no intention of getting that, or maybe it's like, and then simply because they threw such a tantrum, you're all right. Then because now you've enforced the thing. In the same way that there are those who would say that you don't want to do the post when you're miserable for hoping that somebody will reach out, but there's a lot of things that we do as humans that aren't the most optimal, and it's not a great precedent. But I've definitely had times where I've reached out, and probably been reached out to, where it was like, hey man, thing you just posted, are you doing okay? And then sometimes that leads to a really helpful conversation. Anyway, sometimes, and yesterday I remember I doom scrolled with my feelings at some point, as back to the idea of you eat your feelings, and seeing it seemed like several people yesterday, April 20th, which is a holiday of cannabis in the United States of America, which when largely affected by the way I was feeling, I imagine, but also like, I do intellectualize, and I would say that I am until all cannabis prisoners are free, we, there's something really, really positive to celebrate about that. But that's like, man, it was like, that was really fucking with me. And I, that while we're all, hooray, hooray, the Death Star is burning, we've legalized cannabis, there's still people in prison. There is an organization, Last Prisoner Project, that I see them as doing good work. I gotta be honest, I have this thing whenever there's like charitable organizations, like I really want to I want to know and talk to somebody in the organization and like ask specific questions. What happens with money? What that? But I've observed them for a long time that they're doing the thing, and spreading the awareness, and I don't know this firsthand, but it seems like you can see when, the figuring out if a charitable organization uses money in a really direct way, as opposed to just, getting a nicer stapler for the office. Like, I think they're really doing it. And I do want to shout them out anytime that anyone's attention in this subject comes up. So anyway, yeah, but also I do recognize that, if I'm miserable, I look at everything through a really negative lens. So anyway, yesterday was April 20th, 4/20 of 2022, and a lot of people were really miserable, and several expressed it, and I was one of them, and yeah, it was the arc there of my latest tiff with reality. At some point yesterday, the thing really organically happened where it's like, it sucks to exist this way. It sucks to be, I'm digging in. I recognize that it is stupid for some of the things that I'm saying, of that, that reality is like a hellscape meant to that it likes to see me writhing around, that it presents me with disappointment and just like that it wants to hurt for the sake of hurt. That's stupid. And in the same way you have a tiff fight with a partner or a friend, it's like at some point, hopefully, I've had this happen before. You just really occurs to you. It just shifts emotionally. And then you hear the words in your head. It's like, that's so stupid to think, like, because it's so stupid and hypocritical to be accusing somebody of hurting you on purpose, because I've thrown some verbal daggers too. And always upon reflection, it's like, that was me offloading pain. I don't want to do that. I do not want to make things worse. I never, when I fucking make things worse, it's always a miss. That's not for what I was going for. And so, you extend the same benefit of the doubt to people. And obviously there's extreme situations. And, but even those most extreme situations, I keep seeing more and more that there's a story behind every super suffery person who at some point there, been some examples of people who get to a point where I don't know if it's correct to say there's no hope for, but there's a lot of work to dig that truck out of the mud in terms of like hurt versus help, fear versus love sort of thing. There's some snowballs that got some super momentum in the ways of suffering and spreading suffering, and that, just acknowledging that. And luckily I don't have that in my immediate orbit, or at least I always thinking about it too much. Anyway, yeah. So I had this fight with reality, and then yesterday turned the corner of, come on, there's this. They gotta be. And I consult my inner my writing team of like, we can do better than this. There's a writer's board. There's see it as like a bunch of characters sitting at a table, like in a writing room of like a comedy show, or any show has a writing team, but and they're cooperating, but sometimes it's kind of a struggle for narrative control. And I recognized yesterday that I'm letting the shittiest, the most, and not just words like bad or villainous, but like the most uninteresting idea of what reality is. Like the representative at the writing board who's like, it's a hellscape, it's a torture chamber. It's like, no, it's not actually. And also that's a shitty story. And it's also a self-fulfilling prophecy. So maybe you shut the fuck up and we'll figure out how to conclude this episode. Bucko, Buster, fucking, should I give him a name? Satan. Anyway, I used to have this concept of Lord Letharge was the demon who constricts and lays on my belly when I have those days where I could spend the entire day in bed depressed or just lethargic. Anyway, yeah, you got that writing team, and then there's the moment of, wait, we can write a better story. And then with the metaphor and reality of the two people fighting, whether they be a couple or a group of friends, but there's the moment of like, look, somebody comes to the negotiating table. Somebody says, I'm going to put my guns down, and we're going to, and ideally both do kind of simultaneously, but usually, there's one who at least, I think that the way it happens is like both will independently have the, like, reach the place where it's time to, but somebody's got to enact like, all right, my guns are down. My sword is sheathed. My intention is to bring this to a better place. And so I hit that at some point yesterday. And then, and I went to bed with, instead of stewing in it, like, with the wish of, I've been told by many, both super spiritual and super, left brain logical, saying that going to bed with a question, going into your dreams with a question for your dreams to answer, like, actually, and I've been doing this thing where I've actually been like writing it down, a dream or a wish. No, a question or a wish, or, or even like a wish for the dream, or, I have these big story dreams. And I had a dream the other day where I went to bed with a wish, and it was fulfilled with a feeling in the dream, this embrace with this dream character who was telling me that I got to describe the dream or to get it, but super summarized. We're in this like community, this like futuristic, but in the middle of the woods community, town sort of fort, futuristic, but amongst a fort situation thing. And all these experiences happen, and there's some Hunger Games stuff going on. There's this and that, but I get like close to the characters there. And then one of them who I'm like super like in love with at the end of the dream, because some dreams, they go like movies. I'm like about to very sad and despondently like return, like leave the fort and go back home because time's up, sort of thing. And she like catches me, as one does in a rom-com, when the person's about to get on the plane, and she's like, I'm in a short time, I got some like ducks to get in order. Like, I've got some things to tie up here, and then I'm going with you because I'm gonna exist with you now. So like that, that like I'm here to stay. And then there was an embrace, and like cryingly embracing, feeling an immense positive emotion with and about this dream character. I thought that was super. That was something. And that was the wish that I went to bed with something along those lines. Which, all right, landing the ship now. I'm really landing the ship. What have I learned? What have I learned from this recent tiff with reality, this recent falling out with reality? Well, perhaps I'll get a tattoo even, because I would like to remind myself of this, is that when it's happening again, when it seems like, oh my God, it's not just that it's going bad. I can't even seem to use my imagination for how this could go well. I'm terrified about the future, and I'm really sad about the past. And I'm also in the past. I'm incapable of perceiving the present, or at least the positive things about the present. I'm just steeped in this, in the past, and sadness and worry of the future. Sadness and worry. Sometimes it's both. And one of these little magic tricks that I found with the cannabis is that if I want to, with cannabis, if I have too much cannabis or almost any amount of edible when I'm super depressed, I can turn it into anxiety, which is better. Well, cool thing about anxiety is you can exercise with it. You can exercise from depression, but it's super hard to pull that truck out of the mud. It's really hard to get that momentum going. As where with anxiety, it's like sometimes it can actually be it's pretty good fuel for effort, for physical strenuous effort. And then that sometimes is the antidote for both anxiety and depression, or at least not feeling super racked in it. Like post rigorous exercise, I just feel everything is ease. Everything is all the things that were spiky and sticking to me are now slipperier. And you do the life thing again. You do reality, the musical, the festival. And today I'm not yet, I do still kind of feel like I'm pushing a rather large, heavy rock with snowball happening around it up a hill, but I'm pushing now, and I feel good about today, and I feel all right about this little solo podcast. I feel like I achieved the thing where I documented a educational experience in my recent tiff with reality, and I realize more now, and will write down what were the steps, what happened when the resolution came, because my sister notices this of me and tells me often that, Zach, you're real grandiose about, you tend to be like, you have a thing and you say, I'm never going to do that again. Or I'm going to do this every day. I'm going to write in this like diary thing every day. You can never just be like, I'm going to make little baby steps to make that a little better. And that is kind of true of me. I tend to be big and grandiose, but I'm aware of it now. So I tend to like pump brakes sometimes. And so, but I will say my brain is saying I aspire to, I'm going to get a fucking tattoo, right? So it's always visible. So when I know when the next like really heavy storm cell comes, that it's like, do everything you can to, transmute that into service or art, like, and definitely don't just steep in it. Though sometimes steeping in it, they say, you got to feel it to heal it, sort of shit. And there's a lot of things that people say and they're contradictory. God damn it. There's so much. And that's beautiful and hilarious. I think this is confusing. This is reality. We are humans. We fuck shit up. It's like a definitional thing about us that we build castles and then we fuck them up. We're fucking weird. We're a weird thing. And some people think they got us figured out. Some people have built a brand around that. They must always come from a place of one who has at least figured themselves out, as if that's something that, and maybe it's true. Maybe there is somebody who has figured it out, who has mastered the mechanisms and cycles of being a human person. I have not. I am often, but then again, we always end up here, or in the past, we always end up here with resolution and feeling, I'm going to be a little bit more conscientious, a little kinder, and a little, also you get, sometimes some things make you a little sharper, a little better boundaried sometimes. And some things make you recede into your shell in shitty ways. But then maybe you poke your head out a little bit by bit. For the rest, I don't know. This is reality. This is being a human. This is weird. And I don't feel it right now, but I have committed to, I love it. So I love us. I love this. I love reality, the musical, the festival. And I would like to be present and participant, and if helpful, if I can. I am in service to the circus in service to the circus till they fold my flag. That's a lyric from a thing. Yeah, reality, the musical, the festival. I'm gonna go have a good day. God damn it! I'm gonna really give it an effort. Happy reality, everyone. I love you all.